Thank you for joining us here on the Nostalgic Podcast. We're talking to the creators of Atomic Robo, the other greatest comic book you're not reading. Today we have Brian, the author.
Howdy.
And Scott, the artist.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. First off, we'd like to thank you for agreeing to do the interview with us. We're only 3 episodes in now, and hey, wow, this is our second creator interview. So we're thankful for that. How did both of you get started? For Brian, I know the 8-Bit Theater came first. That was how it came to my attention with a blurb in EGM. Was there anything before that? And for Scott, what were you working on before?
I just always wrote stuff and eventually was stupid enough to put it online.
And that's Brian's life in a nutshell.
Pretty much.
What was I doing before Robo? I was not drawing comics for the most part. Flying airplanes, I know that part. But a friend was doing an anthology project and asked me to submit like a pinup, and then someone saw that and they said, oh, he's got to do a short story for us, so I did that, and it kind of snowballed, and as I was just starting to seriously consider maybe actually doing this for a living, Brian contacted me about this crazy idea he had for a robot scientist, and the rest is history.
Just random chance online. You know,
Yeah.
I was looking for an artist, and a bunch of people said, no, this idea is terrible, and Scott didn't.
What did I know?
I know. Well, you figured out later it was terrible.
Right, but it's too late to back out now. I quit my job.
Now, Atomic Robo's told an intricate set of story blocks, as you've described it, which can be rearranged and thrown out to make the series highly modular. How often do you change the assigned numbers of a volume? Keeping my eye on the timeline on the website, I've thought that Spear of Destiny and Diamonds Are For Never seem to have been renumbered several times.
Well, because it depends. You know, we always do whatever volume we're in the mood to do, and so it's kind of hard to project beyond, you know, just a couple. You know what mood we will be in, 3 years from now. And then in addition, we've just made an effort to, since we've gone online, to get rid of volume numbers.
How many stories would you say you have the rough outlines for at this point?
Lots.
20 total-ish right now, maybe 23.
I seem to recall a while back you were saying you were working on something in the 20s, I believe, and that the effects of the end of Volume 8 still weren't, all those pieces weren't put back together.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever will, really. We're kind of entering a whole new phase of Robo's present, mirroring our own very strange world that we live in.
So I guess if I can ask this question and hope it's not spoiler-ish, how does that impact the final page of the free comic book day with the science fair?
Oh, see, that was where we broke our rule of never going into the future.
I will take this opportunity to remind everyone that that was Scott's idea.
Well, all right, I learned my lesson. But I think that was so minor that it doesn't really matter.
Well, it's an easy fix because it takes place in, what is it, 2020?
2020 or something. So you and I will both be dead by then. We don't have to worry about it.
There's not going to be a Western civilization as we know it. We're going to be
Problem
looking at,
solved.
Yeah, it'll be Mad Max, and what happened on that page will be the least of anyone's worries. But on the off chance that we are all alive in some way and not just scavenging for food, they just get the island back at some point.
All right. We're talking a little bit here about what Robo is and some of the nuances of it, but why should people be reading Atomic Robo?
Because we need to eat. Oh, but other than that, because it's good?
Yeah, it's a fun little science adventure romp. There's a lot of history, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of jokes if you are into those things, and just a fun adventure, even if somehow you are not. We play around with continuity in ways that other comics just can't. The series rewards reading it both out of order and rereading it, because you'll see how different things interlink. Scott's a pretty good artist, I guess, so you can, if you're illiterate, you still got pretty pictures to look at.
I could agree with that. One of the things that always stood out to me, and this is what I was saying last week when we spoke, that the end of Volume 6 really worked for me because of how much we saw in Volume 5 with Robo growing in his younger years and seeing the people around him that influenced him.
Yeah, those two tied together. I think it was almost kind of coincidental the way those two the sentiments in those two sort of tied together, but...
Yeah, actually that was one of the lucky coincidences. You're doing Volume 4 and having Edison's ghost pop up, and then doing Volume 5 about how that happened, then doing Volume 6 as sort of it's just this symbol of, what we did way back in, I think it's the second issue ever, where he mentions how, he's clearly getting older and no one else is.
No one knows his Jack Benny impression.
Exactly.
Exactly.
For Brian, you've worked as both a creator and then as a freelancer for the larger comic companies, and at times you've, in no uncertain terms, expressed some of your resentment for their practices, one issue being stretched across an entire volume. How is Robo different from other comics, and what are your personal rules as a writer?
What work I've done, it's always been part of something else. And they'll say, oh, we need these 2 issues as part of this 10-issue thing, and I'm looking at the idea, and I'm like, this is maybe 1 issue for this whole thing you want to do. What's going on? And I mean, I know what's going on. They have to do you have to crank out these books every month. It's just a fact that crossovers or events are going to push sales up on everybody, massively incentivized to do these things. And technically that's true of our job as well, but...
Yeah, and I think the difference between like a corporate comic where you've got a bunch of freelancers being coordinated from some central office is all of us, our primary job, motivation, purpose is to sell comics, but I think when you're working with your own creation, there's also a very personal aspect to it that, no matter how much I might love Batman, I don't own Batman. I don't have any emotional stake in the Batman franchise or anything like that. So I would never call Robo like hot art or anything like that. But on a creative level, it's important to us as individuals, and so I think that's where you start to get the difference there.
Yeah, dovetailing from there, just because, I mean, it is not a deep book. It is very just superficial, fun book that has some, kind of elements sort of hidden in there, but, it's not Watchmen or whatever. It's just it's just pure classic pulp fun, right?
I think you might undersell the book a little bit there. With Robo and More Than Meets the Eye, I mean, I go to numerous comic shops. Well, I know people who go to numerous comic shops to promote both those books as the things people aren't reading.
Well, this is sort of the point that I'm leading to. A Transformers comic is perhaps an even better example. There's no reason for that to be really good, right? It's just stepping away from the product itself. What it really is part of this toy commercial machine. We remember growing up, licensed video games, licensed comics really weren't all that good because it was just part of the machine. Just because it is a licensed product or just because it is a fun, pulpy comic doesn't mean it has to be bad. You can make these things really good and really fun and genuinely entertaining. And I think that's the strategy that we've taken with Robo, is to just do the best adventure comics that we possibly can and just trust that, there's something about that spark will be the promotion and be the marketing, instead of doing all these crossovers and events and the most important story ever this month, whatever.
Then moving away from story, let's talk about art. Scott, what are some of your rules in terms of both narrative structure and anatomy, and in regards to interpreting Brian's scripts as well?
Interpreting is an excellent word.
That is a great way of putting it. Yeah, that is exactly what I do. Rules, huh? Since the get-go on this, it's been such a scramble to get it done. I've always has this great ambition to sit down and draw or write like a Bible of how to do or how I do Robo. But the fact is it's constantly changing, and I never actually have the space to breathe long enough to figure it out, to put it into words. When we first started doing this, I literally had no idea what I was doing. I had done a couple of small comics when I was in high school, didn't know the first thing about telling a story, drawing just about anything. It was all this crazy just list of demands that I had to somehow meet. I've since then, studied a lot of storyboarding, which I think is the best way if you're going to teach yourself how to do comics, studying storyboarding, and I've got a couple books on camera work because nothing really emulates the medium better than those do. Basic rules is I try to keep it simple. I like everything to be very clean and to read easily, so I want it to, if all the word balloons went away, you should still be able to follow the story. Which sounds like really rudimentary and obvious, but if you look at a lot of comics, that's not the case. You can't follow them visually. I guess maybe less so now, but especially if you go back to when Brian and I were reading comics in the 90s, oh my God. Everything was this crazy splash page that made no sense, and these weird panels that you can't call them artistic because there was no design thing to it or larger aesthetic to it. It was just a mess for mess's sake.
Sometimes Scott will draw a comic with no script. It's a story he's making up, and I'm going to add dialogue to it later. And I found it's actually kind of difficult for me to do because he's telling the story already so well visually. It's I can't think of anything that isn't obviously redundant to go here.
Well, thank you.
So thinking about more than just Robo, but some of the other characters you have to draw, let's talk about the promise.
Sure. Well, let's see. We got in the promise there, the no cheesecake rule. That's really the only one that applies to me visually, I think.
Explain that to our viewers.
Oh, sure. So we have this thing on our website called The Promise, and it's just like a basic our manifesto on comics, I suppose.
Very
so
quickly.
Brian and I, very quickly, go ahead.
No angst, no cheesecake, no reboots, no filler.
Right, and that's pretty easy. The no filler is easy because of the way we structure the volumes. We don't have to worry about what happens between them. Although in the comic format, I'm kind of looking forward to maybe getting the opportunity to explore little stories.
Yeah, there's totally stories and
between the
moments of mine and to
But things that grow the characters, flesh them out. And,
not like we got to fill 22 pages with Bernard having lunch.
Right. Or like I have to,
it'd be interesting.
Or we're waiting for some event to happen, and so we need like 3 months of not much happening at the Xavier Institute because we don't want to start any storylines in there that are going to interrupt whatever the big event is.
Exactly.
Because heaven forbid we can tell a condensed story into one single issue.
Right.
That is not how you push funny books, sir.
No, not the way it's done. Reboots, we don't have to reboot because we jump all through his life, so there's nothing to reboot or retcon. Although, as you pointed out, that one page on that one free comic book day story, someday we're going to have to reckon with that and make it work.
We have 5 years.
And then we used to have no delays, and then we realized that, A, we couldn't control all the factors in our own lives in there, and we definitely couldn't control what happened with the printer and the direct market and our publishers and stuff like that. So unfortunately had to pull that one off of our promise. But
so moving past that then,
Sure.
Dealing with Diamond and whatnot, now you've moved over to the new system with Patron.
I asked them because I had no idea, and the proper official pronunciation is Patreon.
You've moved over to a reader-funded system, which also gives you much more creative control in regards to how and when you will distribute this, along with the books now becoming free in a webcomic format. So what really prompted that move over?
Well, I came from webcomics, so I just saw I knew the strength of the format. And Scott and I, we've never gotten along very well with the Diamond direct market system. We just saw it as a constant bottleneck and to our sales, basically.
Yeah, but it's also, it's not a system that's set up to service the small independent. It was created for DC and Marvel, who are moving massive amounts of books. So it's very difficult as a small press to get your book even, get it shipped and get it where it's supposed to go, get it noticed by the retailers, and it's a massive pain.
And that assumes any of it goes right. And with Diamond, it just rarely does. I've never met a single comics retailer or creator or publisher or anyone who works at any of these publishers who was at all happy with how Diamond works. So yeah, just the entire direct market just seemed like it was a lot of effort for relatively little payoff for us. We noticed that the vast majority of our sales were coming from very few stores. It's the classic 80-20 rule or 90-10 or whatever it is. So we were just always interested in getting our comics to as many people as possible. We already knew that tons of people were pirating it because that's just what happens. So
that's what passed for marketing when we had a publisher.
Yeah. So we were like, well, why don't we just put it up, put it online officially, make it free, get rid of all barriers to access, and just make that part of the official. Here's how you can read some Atomic Robo. If you enjoy it, then you obviously that this stuff doesn't come out of just nothing. So if you like it enough that you want to see more of it, well, you'll buy some volumes or you'll buy a T-shirt or whatever it is, and it just keeps on going.
And we're not limiting ourselves just to. I guess the real move was just to open up new options, not to really close any doors. So Robo you're still going to be able to buy trade paperbacks of Robo and support your local comic book shops and all that jazz, but just the method is just going to be somewhat different.
There's just this free access to it as well.
Yeah.
It's funny, since we made the switch, we every so often, almost every day, get emails about, oh, is it still in print? I still want to buy it in print. I'm like, it's still in print. You can buy it. There's still copies everywhere.
Yeah, and then we're going to be...
Except you are getting it for free as well.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed this morning that the icon on Volume 1 on Comixology has changed in the upper corner, that no longer reads Red 5. So how is that being distributed?
Well, digitally, it's just, we own it now, so it is Tesladyne LLC is our official, a little corny, I guess, to name ourselves after our comic book company, but whatever. basically we are the publisher now. If you bought them through Red 5, they're still there in your account with unchanged.
Okay, well, tell us about the first Kickstarter.
Oh my lord, that was quite a learning experience.
Yeah, still working on some of the things for that.
Yeah, we made a official Tesladyne field guide. It's basically the employee handbook you would get if you were a real employee at Tesladyne, as in the comics. And there were a bunch of extras on top of that. We did T-shirts, we did posters, we did stickers, we did rulers, pens, I think, lanyards. I mean, it was getting bonkers.
It did get a little ridiculous, yes.
You teased the Robo schematic at the final hour that
At the
nobody
final
could
hour.
actually meet that goal.
Spoiler alert: if you had obeyed those designs, it wouldn't have worked.
No, probably not.
Tell us about Dr. Dinosaur.
Oh, that jerk.
He's our Wolverine.
Oh, God darn it. Yes, he is. Well, our Deadpool now.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah, Wolverine's not the hotness anymore, Brian.
He's 90s hotness, not
He's 90s
whatever
hotness,
this
yeah.
is now. The teens.
Yeah, we're out of the aughts.
What's up with Dr. Dinosaur? He is he's a time traveler, maybe. He's a dinosaur, definitely. He's absolutely
Well, sort of.
insane. He's a lot of fun. He's fun, but also very frustrating to write for because anything he says or does, or could say or could do, just makes perfect sense.
So now you have a crazy lizard who annoys our hero on every free comic book day on the first weekend of May.
Yes.
Like clockwork.
Is Dr. Dinosaur going to feature in this year's free comic book day?
Yes, he is, but it is not a free comic book. We can't call it free comic book day because we're not participating in free comic book day. However, coincidentally, there just happens to be a Dr. Dinosaur comic that you don't have to pay for that will be coming out on that same Saturday.
For free on that day.
For free.
On our website.
If we were to lock the two of you into the Geek Easy with Jason Aaron and James Roberts, and lock you in there until you come out with a plan to fix comic books, what are some of the changes that document would contain?
Well, when we say fixing comic books, what exactly do we mean? Let's define the question first. Comics in general, mainstream comics.
What's broken in comics?
Well, the rampant sexism, that's one. Complete lack of diversity. Not so much in the readership. Well, in the readership, but I think that stems from a lack of diversity in the creators who actually get their work.
Yeah, the cast, characters, and creators.
Yeah.
Although partly webcomics and partly just the changing demographics of this nation are slowly changing that.
Yeah, that is true. It'd be nice if we could change it a lot faster than we are, but yeah.
Totally agree, but let's be realistic. These sorts of things are.
But we're locked in
nature,
nature, Brian. We're fixing comics here. We don't have to be realistic.
Okay, yeah.
Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring out? Anything you wanted to say to our listenership, small though it may be, to get them to read or enjoy other comic books?
Apparently, I have no idea what I'm allowed to say or not say anymore about Atomic Robo, so I won't say anything about any of the cool stuff we have coming up soon. But we do have some very cool stuff cooking at the moment that will be dropping pretty soon. So while the change to webcomics was, I think, a shock for a lot of people, and then I think like the stuff that we have coming down the pipe is going to be a bigger, hopefully pleasant shock. Well, hopefully the change to webcomics is a pleasant shock also. But
yeah, we've got the free comic that is on the same day as Free Comic Book Day. That'll be a lot of fun.
Coincidentally.
Volume 9. No, damn it.
No,
Brian. The Golden Circle is wrapping up, and that will be the last of the back catalog. So all new material will be coming out in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's funny. We've been telling people for years, that you can read them in any order, and you've read them. You can read them in any order, and we always try and push that. Yet when we made the switch to self-publishing, and the decision was made to not number them anymore, to actually just treat them like you would treat, like a book, as just a one in a series, and it doesn't really matter what order you read them in. I was completely unaware just like how ingrained in our own thinking the volume numbers were, and it's really hard not to refer to them that way.
Well, then I guess I'll just ask one final question here, for recording purposes. Then, to ask one final question, what is the state of Robo? Is the state good?
It's pretty good.
The state's pretty awesome. I mean, we're still dealing with the changeover to self-publishing in the webcomic, but I think so far we've done better than we expected right off the bat. Like the Patreon thing was that was almost an afterthought. Like when we were first planning this, Patreon didn't exist. So it's been in our heads for a while to go out on our own with the book. And so yeah, no, I think it's going really well. I mean, the traffic is really high at the website, the web store, which we've been waiting forever to. People have been begging us to have one for years now, and we finally do, and that's doing well. And new statues, more merch as time goes on.
I guess I'm going to actually toss out one new question that just occurred to me here. You mentioned third parties. What can you say about Last Stop?
Am I going to have to remind you what that is, Scott?
No, you don't have to remind me what it is. I remember what Last Stop is. Yeah, we don't know what happened with that project. That was another thing where it was like, yeah, really, they came to us and said, we want to do this. It'll be cool, it'll be for our demo reel, and if something happens, maybe we can work together on whatever that thing is. And we said, sure, and then it turned into them wanting to do a Kickstarter to raise the funds to do it, and we thought about it for a while, and we thought it would be an interesting experiment to see, because we had been toying with the idea of doing the Kickstarter that we did, but we weren't really sure what. I think up to that point we had no idea really what our audience was and what they were interested in spending their Earth dollars on. And then, I don't know, there was a vast silence for a long time. I think, are they done? I don't know if they ever did the final audio.
I got my stuff.
Yeah, we kind of we had nothing to do with it, and then didn't know what happened to it, and I think it was. I felt horrible about.
But now you don't have to, because stuff was sent out apparently.
Apparently I do. Yeah, I can finally sleep at night, and I don't know. Yeah, we haven't talked to those guys in quite some time.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Has been a pleasure and a joy.
Thanks for interviewing us.
And to all our listeners, you can catch up on the story for free at atomicrobo.com.